We'll be getting started in about 1 minute. I want to thank you for your patience. We had a few committee interviews that we were doing this afternoon, and so I was a little long-winded in those meetings. So, having said that, at this time, I'd like to call the City of Bowie regular City Council meeting of Monday, October 2nd, 2023, here in Council Chambers. It is now 8:07 p.m. If you would, please, everyone, stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance if you are able to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, Madam City Clerk, would you confirm that we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a quorum this evening. In council chambers, we have Councilmember Estev, Councilmember Wolfley, Councilmember Hawkins, Councilmember Truesdale, Mayor Adams, and via Teams virtually, we have Mayor Pro Tem and Debu Madu.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. At this time, I will open the floor if there are any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Hearing none, we'll move forward to citizen participation. Do we have any? Okay. Okay, and before we get started, I would like to make sure that everyone is aware that we will not be having a closed session this evening. We will not. Okay. We will start off with Ms. Kathy O'Connor. Good evening.
Good evening.
And just adjust the mic as to what makes you feel comfortable.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor Adams and council persons, I have deep roots here. For over 25 years, I've lived on Stafford Lane, and my family has been in the immediate area for over 100 years. So I know what this area is like. It's peaceful. That was until June of 2023, when I live in the Levitt section and obviously the S section, until the house behind me was rented to renters who actually just moved out this past weekend. And I know some of you are aware of the issues, but I want to give you some of my opinions about this topic. It was very loud every weekend, almost every weekend. And if it was a holiday weekend, they would start Wednesday night sometimes and go on through Sunday night, and sometimes even into Monday and Tuesday. Over 90 decibels in my backyard, with me standing 10 feet from my fence because of plantings I couldn't get right next to the fence. I couldn't hear the TV in the house if it was turned up to 35 or 40, with the air conditioning on, all the windows shut, and the doors shut. I was routinely kept up all night. Across the street from me is the senior community of Somerset Park, and I'm sure they couldn't sleep either. I have neighbors who have Alzheimer's, who suffer from cancer, my own husband is 100% disabled. We have elderly people in the neighborhood. We have a lot of young children, all of whom were continually affected by this home. The problem is that these were professional parties that were being held. And this house happens to have a pool, and that's why the people were there. And there were far too many attendees. This was not a family having a small party at their home. This was people who were opening up their rental home to whomever wanted to show up. And there were plates from all over the DMV. And I have pictures of all of this, plus video to prove all of it. This past weekend, they moved out after 32 citations and counting, and they would have had more, but some neighbors couldn't get to City Hall to complain about it. So again, the problem is professional parties, some of which are advertised on Eventbrite and other places. I asked attendees how they found out about the party. They said YouTube. I looked it up. I couldn't find it. But they're advertising somehow. I don't know how. It's disrespectful to the neighbors, and it's disrespectful to the city. 32 citations, and they haven't gotten the hint yet. Well, now they've moved. But I'm worried about the newer technology and social media, that these advancements could impact the city's code ability to keep up with it. For instance, Airbnb. Does the city have anything in the code about that? Probably not, and I should have checked it before I came over here, but I did not. But I want to bring this up. It's complex issues as entertainment modes and offerings have expanded exponentially. It's not that I don't want people to have parties, but I don't want a professional party held in the backyard of my house, essentially, in a dense neighborhood. They need to go, if they want to do that, they need to go rent a warehouse or go somewhere else and have a party that's very loud. Imagine parking being restricted to one lane for many streets. Parking at the Somerset Park senior community filling up. People walking through the park, urinating, walking around with open bottles for hours at night. Professional DJ equipment with multiple channels, mixers, and speakers. And they knew it was wrong. They turned out lights because we were taking pictures, and they knew people were watching, but they didn't care. And there was little recourse, and I have to thank Drew Malloy because he was great, the code enforcement. He was wonderful, and we did work with him. I guess one of my bigger issues too, and it's not even what type of music. I don't care if it's my favorite band, I'd still have the same problem. There were also very lewd lyrics, explicit lyrics, which, again, if you want to have that in your house or in a party, that's fine, but it's 6 o'clock at night at 90 decibels where there's a lot of little kids in my neighborhood that can hear this. So I respectfully request the city to look into perhaps updating the code to address professional parties, particularly for people who own pools, and also how these parties are advertised as well. I personally would like to have the city establish a renters database so I have their names, and that way I can personally sue them if I want to for, say, let's say they bought the house, loss of value to my home, mental anguish from not getting any sleep, etc. Not allowing people to rent homes with residential pools out for professionally planned parties unless the owners are on site, on premises, for, say, a family event, like a wedding or a family event, birthday party. I hear the bell, I just want to get one more thing out. Equity issue, which is to consider changes to allow people to file complaints electronically. I know some of my neighbors could not get to City Hall to complain, and that's an issue. I can register to vote online. I filled out my juror summons online, but I can't, and I'm sure there's a legal reason, and that's why it's not the case, but that's it. I look forward to working with you to help solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Next, we have Valencia Wood.
Yes.
Did I do that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
There's two of us. Yes.
And there's two of you.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, feel free to adjust the mic. It's
Yes.
comfortable.
So thank you for having us. And we're here by invitation of Councilman Esteb. And we're currently in the process of purchasing 5004 Randonstone Lane, the former Bowie Montessori School. And we're from the Mandala School, the co-founders. There are three of us, but the other person's not here tonight. This is Antoinette Murray, and she is the head of school, and I am director of programs and development. So we wanted to talk with you a little bit about who we are and what we do, and what we would like to do to become a part of the community.
Good evening, guys. Thank you. So one of the things that I wanted to let you know is that we are a private, non-public school. We are currently in Howard County. We currently have been running for 4 years. We are a school that is focused on social emotional And our academics comes third to that because social emotionally, our students need to be there before we go on to the academics. The other thing that's really important for us is a sense of community. So our students are responsible for branching outside of our doors into the community as well and helping others. We also have a very strong emphasis on family. So when we look at schools, most of the time you're dealing with students. We are dealing with students and families and parents. And so one of the things that we do is if there's things that are going on at home, we help manage those as well. We also have services where we have connections with therapists in the area and things of that nature when our students need that as well. One of the things that's really important for us, and the reason why that we're here, is because it's very important for us to make sure that the community is aware of who we are and what we plan on doing for the property. We plan on having our school there. We are now kindergarten through 8th grade. We would like to expand into high school. We know that the Bowie Montessori School had about 180 students, and that's what we're looking at for for the property as well. We're wanting to make sure that we have a very great relationship with the neighbors in the community, so that's important to us. We know that one of the issues that they had was with the traffic going through and people maybe speeding through, and we're addressing that and making sure that we have the information so that our parents are aware of being good stewards in the community as well. The property has been sitting for 5 years, so we are excited to get in there and have all of that overgrowth gone and be able to have something that is really important to the community. The other thing that we've already started doing as well is we have already started talking with Bowie State University. We have already formed connections with them and partnerships with them that we're excited about, I'm looking forward to as well. And our students will be able to take advantage of Bowie State University as well. And their students will be able to come over and see our program and learn from our program as well. We are not a special education school, but we have many students that are ADD on the spectrum, have a wide variety of needs. We do a great job of making sure that we're managing those because we are individualized in our education. All of our students have to move on. They have to master before they move on. So because of our small environment, we have the ability to do that. And so one of the things that I also want to make sure that you guys are aware of is that we are also wanting to partner with the public school system. We are not coming in and trying to tell them how to do their job or that they're not doing a great job, but we want to be a partner to them. We know that there are students that sometimes fit the public school and there are students that fit private school. And we want to be able to work with them. In Howard County, we have done the same. We have students that are on our IEP, that are on IEPs with the school system, and we work very well with the school system in making sure that those services are being met as well. So we just want to kind of introduce ourselves. We are in the contract phase. We have not gone to settlement yet, but we wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of what our plans are, and if there's any questions as we move forward through the process, and as you're looking at our packets that we left with you, that you're able to ask us any questions, and we're open to that as well.
All right. Thank you so very much. And I take it you're Antoinette Murray?
I am.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
All righty. Thank you. Next we have, now who is this? Mr. Leslie?
Comments.
How are you, sir?
I'm well, and you?
And my apologies if that was.
I guess I share one trait with the mayor pro tem in the fact that I always have something to say about whatever is going on. I just want to talk to you quickly, and I'll make this brief, about, and this came to mind with this mentoring program that we spoke about last week, last meeting. And Meredith Connors is my daughter. I'm very proud of her. She's a very good daughter, and I don't always agree with her, okay? So I just want you to take a look at spending. I mean, we had a budget put together, okay, that was voted on and approved with no tax increase. At this point in time, I think what needs to be looked at is the state of the economy, because I think we're in some pretty unpredictable times, okay? If you look at the yield curve, which is inverted, you look at the credit card debt, which is over $1 trillion, not only that, but the rate at which that grew, and compare that to retail sales at the rate of which what that went up and where it's plateauing off at this point in time, which kind of tells you something as to what's happening. Consumer confidence, supply chain issues have mostly been, I think, resolved, although there are still problems out there in some areas. Corporate debt is another thing that needs to be looked at. And I think that what this council needs to do is look at only essentials at this point in time, because I don't know where we're going. I don't think anybody else does. So when it comes to spending, I think it needs to be prudent. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. At this time, we will now move on to presentations, if there are any this evening. I don't believe so.
No, Mayor, there's none this evening.
Okay. We will now go on to city boards and committees. I don't see anything on the agenda.
No, sir.
Council announcements. If we could, I would first just like to say for everyone, please remember that this is Domestic Violence Month. That is something that causes so much and fractures so much of our community. And I would just like to say to encourage people to make sure they're aware of that. There are a lot of places to go and a lot of information being presented. But what I'm really happy about, not only the services we provide in the city, the county, Prince George's County has what we call the Family Justice Center, where those who are victims of domestic violence can go and have complete wraparound services for everything they need. So during this month, I'd like to commend, even though they're a part of our city as well, the Sheriff's Department, with their 10th year Purple Lights, as they began for Domestic Violence Month. So again, I encourage anyone who feels in that position and needs some help to please reach out for that. And again, if not locally, the Prince George's Family Justice Center has wraparound services for everyone. And I think it's so important that we recognize that. And with that, I will go to Councilmember Steph from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much for mentioning the Domestic Violence Month. In fact, I believe it was at your invitation that that particular group, the Family Justice Center, came and spoke at the last rally. And I remember a lot of residents came up to us afterwards and mentioned they really appreciated their being there, and I believe that was at your invitation, if I recall correctly. I also just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Old Bowie Celebrates Festival. It returned about 3 years ago with city support. The whole council's been working together, as well as a very large group of dedicated volunteers who are putting this annual event together with a huge number of vendors, musicians, entertainers, kids' activities centered on Chestnut and 12th. This coming Saturday the 7th, the whole council is invited, the whole public is invited. They asked me to tell everyone that there will be parking at Rockledge Elementary, as well as parking at the South Huntington Park on 11th Street, as the downtown will be closed. But everyone's invited to join that. And the only other thing I will mention, at the request of several residents who brought it to my attention, the city has started recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month as well. I know I've heard from a lot of residents in the last few weeks, they felt that appreciative of the fact that we're giving visibility to those of our residents who have Hispanic backgrounds. I'm the whitest looking guy I know, but I am, believe it or not, Hispanic with the last name Esteve, and so I know my father would be very pleased for me to mention that tonight. And so just wanted to say a word of recognition for that. And thank you for all coming out tonight.
Councilmember Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Bayer. It's good to see you all. Good to see you, staff. I wanted to extend congratulations to Bowie High School on a successful homecoming celebration. The football team beat Bladensburg High School 56-12. So that's something that we could be proud of. I was honored to be able to participate in the homecoming celebration parade. Was able to judge some of the floats. And it was great just to see young people participating in the community and with so much life and energy. And I look forward in the future for residents in the city to really continue to wrap our arms around our young people, because they're our greatest asset, and celebrate them in Bowie High School. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other council announcements? Hearing
Mr.
none.
Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, there you
there,
are.
good.
I am sorry, it's hard to hear. Please go right ahead, Mayor Pro
That's
Tem.
okay. Thank you so much. Sorry, I'll back up. I think my camera's a bit close. Hi, good evening, everyone. Apologies that I'm not able to be there with you in chambers. I'm having some ankle pain, so it probably was not in my best interest to try to walk over there. I just wanted to give a quick announcement and just update. I've got a couple of emails in regards to Mitchellville Road. So I just want to update everybody right now. The sidewalks are being installed on Mitchellville Road, and that's something that's been a long time coming. The sidewalks should be completed around mid-October, which at that point the paving will start. So for anybody that's asking, everybody that's concerned and sent a lot of emails, yes, repaving will start mid-October. I'm not exactly sure at this time how long it will last. I'll be sure to give some updates on that on October 23rd. But I was able to hear from Councilmember Watson's office that repaving will start mid-October. So just wanted to highlight that for everybody and also concur with a lot of my colleagues in terms of Hispanic Heritage Month as well as domestic violence awareness. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention too, and reminder for anybody who doesn't know but would love to participate because we're really big on community feelings and community encouragement. This week is Bowie State's homecoming from October 2nd, started today, and it's going to end October 8th. So for anybody that's interested, please be sure to engage with Bowie State. Their homecoming is going on right now. A lot of pride going on, a lot of students very excited, especially their seniors that are going off to some great professional careers. So just be sure if you have some free time to engage with Bowie State in their homecoming. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, you opened the door for me on that one. I would like to make sure that we invite everyone to the Royal Court coronation at Bowie State University on this Wednesday evening. And why would I mention that, you ask, Councilman DeVore? Because my daughter is a senior at Bowie State, and she is Miss Black and Gold in the court for Bowie State this year, and she will be part of that coronation. So anyone who is interested in attending, that'll be Wednesday afternoon, and please feel free to join me and others as we watch these wonderful young people go through the process of the coronation. And thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem, for opening that door for me. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, since we're bragging about the Adams household, I just want to say congratulations on 35 years in business with SA Tech.
Thank you so very much.
I understand you're celebrating a big anniversary.
All right, thank you. On that note, we will now move to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and
Good
City
evening.
Council, and greetings from the International City Managers Association Conference in Austin, Texas. I wish you could be here with me. It's nice and warm and pleasant. The food is great, especially the Tex-Mex kind of food. But otherwise, I have no report, but I'm ready to get on with the meeting and interface with the residents. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and properly second that we accept the consent agenda as is. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye and press your. Aye. Aye. Opposed, same favor. Motion carries. Councilmember Endamamadu, did you vote?
Yes, I said aye.
How do we put that? Because I see the
Yeah,
screen.
I know. At the moment, we haven't finished that, so we'll just take her vote as an aye, yes, and I'll note it. But
So,
at least the other
We-
ones here in person are noted with that,
for
right?
the record, we have 7 yeas, no nays.
No, six. Six. Councilmember Gardner's not here this evening.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, okay.
We'll
So,
get there.
now that you have all passed the test, we have 6 votes, we have a unanimous vote, the motion carries. We will now move on to old business, and I will turn it over to city staff. And this is regarding the city's traffic calming policy.
Mr. Mayor, let me chime in there before Mr. Halsey starts talking. This was a discussion that Councilmember Esteve wanted for us. But at present, we have Mr. Halsey here as a subject matter expert. We also have the traffic calming policy in our booklet for discussion. We don't have a presentation, but we're prepared to answer any questions that the council have regarding the current policy and give recommendations as required. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say the same, and except good night good evening, Mr. Mayor, good evening, council members. As pretty much as city manager has explained, I'm here to discuss any or answer any questions that the council may have from the engineering perspective. And so I'll just be quiet and listen to what kind of questions you may have.
Okay,
Mr.
I
Mayor,
will.
if there's an opportunity, I'd love to chime in on this.
Okay, we will allow you to do so, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, okay, awesome. I don't know what the most helpful manner is. So Jose, please let me know, and Al, please let me know what's most helpful for staff. But one of the things that I've been looking that I would like to learn from this discussion are really the different types of traffic calming measures that we have access to. I know in the past, typically, if it meets the threshold after the study is completed, we'll install something that's more similar to speed humps. However, I know in District 4, we've been talking about that a lot with constituents, and there's been this feeling that a lot of people don't necessarily like speed humps because it has the potential to damage vehicles. And I know in some other areas, not in Bowie particularly, but other municipalities, I've seen these like 3 yellow lines that when you drive over them, they kind of make a noise that incentivize you to kind of speed down. So I wanted to see if there were other measures that we have similar to those that we could take besides speed humps to maybe address some of the speeding that we have going on throughout the city. And then also, I do have a list of streets that I've been sent by District 4. I'll read them off briefly just for the record, and then I can email this afterwards if you want to take a look at this, or whatever the most helpful and appropriate manner is, just let me know, and then I can work with you on that. But the streets that have been most concerning in District 4 that I've heard about are Pinecroft Lane and Penn Manor Drive, Atlantis Drive and Mitchellville Road and Green Apple Way, Pennsbury and Pentera Way, Pennsbury and 301, and then the Mount Oak intersection where the stop sign is. I forgot the road right now, but I can email it to you. In terms of significant speeding, none of those streets have they don't have cameras or any type of calming devices. I know we have the other one that measures speed when you're going a little quickly. It'll tell you, hey, you're at 30 miles, you're at 40, you're at 50, slow down kind of thing. None of these streets have that right now. However, there's been some significant feedback and reporting that these streets have a large level of speeding, as well as Pointer Ridge Drive. Sorry, that was the other one that I didn't mention, Pointer Ridge Drive. So I'd like to understand what are some of the other measures that we have out there that we can take that would be cost efficient for the city, that also may not require as much time as in installing a full-on speed hump. And then if we have enough of the one that measures your speed, that 30, 40, 20 miles per hour slow down, if we have enough of that, or what that cost is looking like, so that we can have that conversation during budget next year. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Pro Tem, I think those are things that you're asking city staff to prepare for later, but not necessarily be in a position to answer right now. Okay.
Yes, of course. And if there are any comments, like if anybody does have any insider comments, I'm very much so open to the feedback, but that's what I'd be looking to learn as it pertains to District 4 in terms of speeding.
All right, thank you very much.
If I could chime in there, if we could get the list that you submitted, that you just read off, what we'll do is take a look at it and see which streets are city streets. Mitchellville is a county road, and Mount Oak is too. We're in a position to put anything on those. And we can make an assessment. With regard to those radar trailers, correct me if I'm wrong, Jose, I think between the police and public works, there are 4 of them to be utilized throughout the city. And a couple, 2 or 3 are controlled by the police and the other maybe public works. But we don't have a lot of them. And we have to get a queue, put in a queue so we can move them around to accommodate the residents. Now, one of the things I wanted to say is that we are in a position, we do have 15 new positions for speed cameras that are going to be implemented through the police department with the new law that allows us to put them in residential areas. So, we could, wait a while to see how effective those are at slowing people down, because as you know, that does work. But we'll get back to you on those other streets and tell you what we can do. What it would require is a traffic study on the street to see what the speeding is. And then, as Jose could allude to, there's a specific criteria in the traffic policy that you all have established that tells them what they can do. Now, we'll hand it over to Jose so he can answer your question about the different kinds of calming devices they are. Jose, chime in.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Al.
Mayor Pro Tem, if you, I'm sure you have the guide with you. Page number 3 pretty much indicates the different levels and the different measures that once a street qualifies and which ones you can do. It doesn't specifically address your idea of the grooving, and that's what it's called in engineering terms, just digging grooves to make people aware of especially when you are close to a toll system or close to an airport, then those grooves pretty much tell you that you need to slow down. As you can see on page 3, there's nothing like that, and there is no, from the engineering perspective, I cannot tell you right now the effectiveness of that measure, but I can definitely contact either airports or toll systems like the MTA and pretty much just ask for a feedback in terms of that effectiveness.
Mr. Mayor, just really quickly, so just to follow up with Al, I'll send you the list shortly here this evening, so you'll have that by morning. And then Jose, yeah, if you can come back to us with that information on like if grooving is effective. I know I've seen it and some of the residents in District 4 have mentioned it to me. So if it is effective, I'd love to explore if that's even like if it is determined that it is effective and it is a more cost-effective measure, I'd love to explore what that looks like, particularly in some of our residential areas like Pointer Ridge Drive is really, really bad for speeding. I mean, especially since there aren't a ton of sidewalks there, and it's a little difficult with the cars, the way that they're parked. So what's happening is some of those cars are getting sideswiped. So I'd really love to learn whatever your feedback is in due time whenever you find that out. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. I'd like to turn at this time to Councilman Estelle, who had requested that we do this. So please go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem, for jumping right in, because actually the Mayor Pro Tem highlights exactly kind of the issue that we're having. So basically, all summer long, I know we've had residents come to our past meetings, some here tonight as well, who have had issues with speeding on neighborhood streets. We've had folks who've had, unfortunately, their vehicles parked on streets totaled by drivers who are not only distracted, but going well over the speed limit. We've gotten a spate of concerns about near misses, people walking on roads that may not necessarily have sidewalks in residential areas, nearly getting hit. This is an issue that's come up all across the city. The Mayor Pro Tem mentioned several in South Bowie. There's been issues all over as well in Districts 3, 2, and 1. And so what I wanted to do tonight was, one, give council members the opportunity to bring up specific concerns they have, but two, also to kind of do a quick overview of how our policy currently works. because the challenge that I've had is that over the years, the council, has requested many speed studies. I've probably requested 22 in the last 4 years, and very rarely do those speed studies result in indicators that allow the city to then go out and immediately mitigate with traffic calming. In other words, we study the issue a ton, but our thresholds are so high that the studies never actually ever result in traffic calming, in spite of the concerns that our residents frequently bring up. This is true of four-way stops, this is true of speed humps, this is true of striping and rumble strips and everything else. And so what I wanted to do tonight was start a conversation with my colleagues and with the public and with staff. And I've done some background with Mr. Aldiez and Mr. Lott and Mr. Mears to kind of bring myself up to speed on some of these things. But what I wanted to do is get a conversation going tonight, not to end tonight, but to continue until we can figure this out, for how we can adjust our thresholds to make it easier to do different types of traffic calming where appropriate to mitigate neighborhood speeding. So as a great example, I was talking to the Saddlebrook West HOA recently. They all mentioned that they were tired of speeding on Running Park Road, people going well over the limit on a regular basis, a lot of people out walking since the pandemic, they're all afraid of getting hit. I then went door to door in Saddlebrook West. Everybody continued to agree that speeding was an issue, but everyone also explicitly said they didn't want speed humps. And so that's kind of a great example where in that particular case, we've done several speed studies on Running Park Road. The studies have all come back and said does not qualify for traffic calming. The residents are all still very concerned and want to see something done, but they don't want to see anything quite like speed humps. They want maybe something a little bit less. And so there are tools in our toolkit. We can do striping. We can do rumble strips. We can do grooves, Mr. Aldiez mentioned. We can do chicanes. We can do a lot of different things. But the challenge is our traffic study thresholds are so high that none of that can get done. And so my suggestion to my colleagues, whether we want to vote on it tonight or at a future meeting, is fine by me. I just want us to have a thorough discussion before we get there. My suggestion would be the city currently has a petition process. If traffic calming standards are not met, residents on a street can override the study. Here's the challenge. The petition requires 90% of the residents on a given street and 60% of the residents on a side street to sign a formal petition saying we want speed humps or rumble strips or striping or whatever else it may be. I don't know anyone, not solar panel salesmen and not politicians, who can get 90% of people on a street to answer a door, never mind sign a petition. And so my suggestion would be we might, as a council, want to look at lowering that number considerably. I mean, I would suggest as low as 20% even, to try and make it easier for where there are areas where residents have really serious concerns about speeding, make it easier to get certain types of traffic calming. We have some very long roads in Bowie. I'm not necessarily saying we would make it easy to put up speed humps on every single block of, say, Superior Lane. I'm not suggesting that. But maybe we can adjust our policy in such a way that within a 3 or 4 block radius, if a percentage of residents on that block radius want a certain type of traffic calming, whether it's a four-way stop or striping or rumble strips or chicanes or anything else, that we make it easier for them to be able to do that. The other thing that staff brought up a lot, and Mr. Conitz mentioned this tonight in his remarks, one of the other things we would have to do is in next year's budget, we would need to increase by no small amount our financial commitment to traffic calming. I know that the four-way stop studies, for instance, cost, I think, $5,000 a piece. That's not nothing, and we got 193 miles of streets. That's a lot of money to just study the traffic calming, never mind implement it and maintain it. So that's another thing too that we're going to need to figure out, councils. What is the budget going to look like to have the funds available to do a lot more of this, assuming we choose to give residents the ability to request more types of traffic calming on their streets. So I know I spoke a lot there, but I hope that kind of gave a bit of an outline of where I'm coming from and the issue and how we could consider proceeding.
Thank you so much, Councilman and Mayor Pro Tem. I think at this point, I think we're all very concerned about speeding within the city and how we move forward on that. I think at this point, probably the prudent way is one of the things that we're doing right now is we're bringing in, I think, over 15 new speed cameras. Let's take a look and see how applying those speed cameras can affect the speeding in a lot of the areas. That'll give us a basis to take a look. And from there, I think we should look to see and go back to, as you're talking about, council member and others, look at what are the other ways that we might do calming. That doesn't necessarily mean a speed bump or a speed hump in there, but what are the other things we can do? And I think it's right. We can look at how we can move forward with that. But for tonight, I think it's a great opening discussion. I really want to see, as the police department and others, as they start spreading out those 15 different speed cameras, additional, how it affects all those areas where we're seeing some of those. And I think from there, we can look where we may need to do additional calming from there. So I think that's a prudent way to approach it. Go right ahead.
And I'm so sorry, just to piggyback on what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize, I failed to mention those. I actually did have a couple questions for staff on the cameras, if I could bring those up now, since we're...
Please.
Mr. City Manager, real quick, can you remind me, so for the public's benefit, previously the city of Bowie was only allowed to do speed cameras in very limited locations, namely school zones. And so we were very regulated as a city where we could put speed cameras. Courtesy of our state lawmakers and council and our lobbying team, we got the law changed. So now there are more places where we can do speed cameras, and my colleagues all have unanimously been working together in support of the police department in getting funds and testing out different technology last year. And new mobile speed cameras will basically be able to be deployed around the city in rotating fashion. And I believe they've identified, I want to say 15 locations. Mr. City Manager, how many locations were we looking at for the new mobile cameras?
The mayor was right. There are approximately 15 new locations. And I think Deputy Chief Preston that you all give you all opportunity to chime in. So I think we've got a pretty good assortment that matches up with the city. And we previously had 6 to 8 locations already. So we should have some improvement, because in my experience, people slow down once they get excited. But we'll see.
And Mr. City Manager, just as a refresher, I apologize. My understanding is that the intent of this program would be, depending on its success, we would have the option of expanding it in the future. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. My understanding is that there's probably a 1-year lag time from when we deploy cameras, get results, identify new locations, identify funding, and expand them further. Am I roughly right in that time frame?
Yes, approximately, yeah.
Okay. And for the benefit of several folks who I know have a specific interest in this, I know Mayor Pro Tem Ndibu Madu referenced several streets in her district. I know in mine, I know that Rockledge Drive in particular has come up a lot. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Rockledge Drive was one of the ones that was included by Deputy Chief Preston for a speed camera. I don't remember which block it is, but I do remember it's one of the ones that they're going to be doing feasibility studies. I know, Mr. Mayor, as well, that I believe Dunwood Valley Drive is also being included, because I know that residents in Woodmore Highlands brought that up. I believe you raised Dunwood Valley as well as a location. So I know there's going to be several hotspots that will be getting cameras. I know already it's not going to be enough, because residents who don't have them yet are going to want them. But it is a good start. And so I just want to thank staff for that.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman before Wolfie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to say thanks to staff who's been working diligently on getting these cameras in place. This has been near and dear to my heart for quite some time. The number one complaint I have when I'm out knocking on doors is issues about safety, streets in particular, and the concern for speeding. The discussion we're having this evening, I think, is a good opening salvo, if you will. I think the fundamental problem we have is that the traffic policy that we have currently is inconsistent with the needs of the community. And that's because in large part what's happened is we have, for all intents and purposes, photocopied the county's policy and implement it locally, which I think does not give us the latitude to pursue the particular needs of our community. It kind of is a top-down. It lacks an understanding of what our constituents consider to be priorities, and it does not provide the flexibility that I think we need. In terms of examples, I want to go and talk about some success, Ken Hill and Bel Air, that area right there where it also intersects with Stony Brook. We put in stop signs. That was all part of a program in anticipation of the expansion of the use of Melford for residential and the concern for increased traffic there. Prior to the introduction of those devices, I had consistent complaints from the community. It was incessant about the traffic in that area, people who lived in that area and people who drove down that area. And I know under the current policy, stop signs are not a, quote, traffic calming measure, but it's one of those things. In theory, it's not a traffic calming measure. In practice, it is. And sure enough, in practice, it has calmed the traffic in that area. And I don't get any complaints anymore. That problem is solved. It's not solved along the entirety of that road, to be certain. There are still other things that need to be done. But I have seen a complete turnaround in people's attitude towards that roadway. And then I compare that with the circumstances that we have at Stony Brook and Superior, where we have done numerous studies that have gone to the extreme of even considering traffic lights and the potential for a traffic circle, which would include taking away people's property so that you can make a big traffic circle. So it might qualify for that. I think I read one of the reports indicating that it met a criteria for a stop at a certain point in time and certain days, maybe morning rush or something. I don't remember when it was. But ultimately, that problem is unsolved. And that problem is unsolved because we have a policy that doesn't meet that needs of that community. And I know there's a need because people have had cars up in their front yards. They have had cars that have driven through fences, and they have had people with near misses crossing the street. They have kids that won't let cross the road down in that area. So I know it's a failure from the standpoint of policy, and I think we need to advance an effort here to revisit what our policy is, and instead of just taking what we have been using from the county, start looking at it as really a provincial matter. It is local, we are closest to the community, and we have a better understanding of what our community needs. So I think we need to build this from the bottom up. Well, maybe not entirely from the bottom up. There are certain principles that ought to be maintained. But to Councilman Estev's point, there are so many instances where we come back with no treatment being warranted when in fact our common sense and our observations would suggest that they are. And one of the things I think that is overlooked in the current policy is this notion of people feeling safe. People can say, well, the traffic is not so bad, it's not all that unsafe, but it's affecting the community because they don't feel safe. And that sense of security is, a quality of life issue. And people shouldn't feel insecure or concerned about their safety or that of their children because of traffic. And I think that gets overlooked in a policy which is just purely a numbers-based issue and doesn't address the prevailing concerns of the community. So if we have prevailing concerns, to Mr. Estev's point, whether it's 90%, the unattainable 90%, or some other factor, we need to take into consideration what the local community, the residents on that street and in that neighborhood really need to feel comfortable in their neighborhood. Okay. And if that's not consistent with what a state highway plan would have or a county plan would have, well, that's okay. We're not the state and we're not the county. So I think it would be beneficial for us to give direction to staff. I know we have a a task force that's working together. I believe, Jose, you're working with the police department and other parts of the organization to address particular areas. I think we need to proceed with addressing a revision to the policy. I spoke last week with the Public Safety Committee and, raised this concern, and there's some expertise in that body that could be beneficial to bring into to discussion as well, so that we can revisit the policy and start saying, what do we need to do for it to meet the community needs? So that we can get more of the Bel Air and Kent Hill and eliminate the problems that we have at Stony Brook and Superior. So I think that if we could ask for that, Mr. Stev, I don't know if you feel comfortable with that, and the rest of the council here, to move forward on some sort of review of that policy, that'd be, I think, the best step forward.
Thank you, Councilman. I will now turn to Councilman Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and my colleague, Councilmember Steph. Thank you for raising this. This is a very timely and important conversation. Public safety, as always, is very relevant. Through this conversation, I've gotten a lot of emails and text messages from folks. The ones that were particularly alarming come from the Saddlebrook West neighborhood, River Park Road. And this is something I think is more than just traffic calming measures that we should, in policy that we should look at, but I'm hearing that school buses are speeding through our neighborhoods, and we've had a lot of near misses. Delivery trucks from Amazon and other delivery entities alongside with cars. So this is something that we need to be extremely prudent about, as you said, Mr. Mayor, but also very nuanced and smart about, and have a level of regression as well. Also, Saddlebrook East, I've heard that there's not only near misses, but folks have lost their pets. Folks have had cars, like the councilman said, run up in their yards and in their fences. This is more than just, I think, this issue is more than just traffic calming. This is the issue of criminal justice and overall public safety. So I'm really pleased with this conversation. I did see, and this is a question for staff, at Kent Hill and Annapolis Road, has that the work on that been done, Mr. Lott or staff? Yeah, what's the latest? Is there a status update on that work? Thank you.
I'm not familiar. Annapolis Road, 450 and Kent Hill Drive. Is that what you're saying? Is that the question?
Yeah, when I was looking at our website of some of the achievements that we've made, it looked as if that there was proposed traffic calming measures in that part of on that part of Kent Hill Drive, but not sure if there was any updates or anything.
It's a streetscape project that went Kent Hill that came up to 197. If that's what you're referring to, Jose can give you an update on that.
Again, this project that I think you're making reference, Council Member, is the complete street study that we are getting done with at Kent Hill Drive, that starts at that particular point that will be the highway. And so the study is 90% done, and I expect that this is going to be completed in terms of the study, not the construction, with the recommendations in terms of funding for the construction of that portion of it is going to be done next month.
Thank you for that. And one last point, Mr. Mayor. On Maple Avenue, I believe, there's two speed humps that aren't painted. It's hard to, for people to see it. And what's happening is cars are going over it, and it's messing up the fenders, there's suspensions. Is there a way that we could have someone take a look at that and see if there's ways to make that more visible?
Absolutely. If you just give me you can email me the particular places, and I'll get people to make it more visible, because that is dangerous.
Sure, thank you.
All right, I'd like to say thank you to staff as well as to council.
Mr. Mayor, I had one more comment, and also after everybody had went.
Okay, council member, could you wait until
Thank you.
you changed on me? You told me no.
Yeah.
Councilman.
No,
go right ahead.
I have a list too, so thank you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it. I definitely thank you, Councilman Estelle, for bringing this discussion to light. My first week on council, which has been a short time, you know, I get a lot of emails from areas in my district, Nashua Lane, and some of these areas, this particular area, you know, you don't have sidewalks, so you have cars speeding. One way in, one way out. Unfortunately, in some of these cases, it's a lot of us doing the driving. It's the neighborhood, you know. So I think that there has to be, you know, education in regards to, you know, educating the seriousness of this with the neighbors. Some of these, one particular area where Draftwood and Dolphin Way, you have coming off Church Road, you have cut-through ways. They're coming in neighborhoods. Some cars coming outside of neighborhoods. So this is something that we really want to you know, discuss, and I really concur with my colleagues. You know, in terms of you know, getting something done. I just have a question for city staff in terms of the 15 speed cameras that I know I along with others had put in streets. Have there been any confirmation on the 15 locations at this point?
Well, based on the input that was received from the city council, a list of 15, at least 15 have been formulated. But I don't want to be premature. At the 23rd of October meeting, the police department is going to be briefing you on that particular, on the policies and what's going to happen with those streets. And they'll be laying all that out. But there's a couple of things that needs to happen here. I mean, based on what we're talking about, there are three subjects. One is the traffic calming policy. You know, there's an indication that some on the council want us to lower the standards for level 2, so that traffic calming devices, whatever they are, the canes, roundabouts, which are very effective, and other things can be used. Four-way stop can be utilized. Also, when you all provide me with a list of streets where the residents are reporting speeding, I can pass that on to the police department, and they can have their community services and traffic enforcement people focus on those areas, and they've been able to mitigate some speeding throughout the city with traffic enforcement and that sort of thing. And of course, the process for the speed cameras, that's going to be presented to you on the 23rd of the next meeting, so you'll have an opportunity to comment on that. I do have one question. I mean, if there's and you haven't taken a vote yet, so, but I would need, if you want us to, if any motions, we need some sort of specificity as to what you will want us to do with the standards and level 2 to make them more adjustable. Now, there was a case about 3 years ago where the council overruled the staff and put speed humps over in the Leavitt area. But that's the only time this happened in the 7 years that I've been there. And that's it, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, thank you. And Councilman Ndabamadu, you asked to make a comment, and then I think Councilman Esteve. But I would like for us to, after that, I will be kind of doing a quick summation so we can move on. Go ahead, please.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think the last points that I forgot to mention in the beginning, I think one of the things that we were able to get done within the, I guess you would say 3.5 years that I've been on council was we did get a turning light into the intersection right in front of Collington Station, which was a big deal by working with State Highway. And so I think what I would ask is, as we are getting this list to staff, and I know you mentioned this earlier, Mr. City Manager, but if there are county roads and state roads in that, if we can just maybe shoot a letter to the county, shoot a letter to the state, if it's a request for a stop sign, or if it's like intersection improvements that we are advocating for them to make and justifying why they should make it, if we could just get that in a letter as part of our, I guess you would say, motion, if we need to do that tonight, that would be really important and impactful. Because I know that we've been successful in the past when we've gone down that route. I remember when Todd Turner was in office, we got a stop sign out on Peachwalker and Mount Oak that was done within like a 1-month turnaround. So we've been known to be able to get things done when we need the county and the state to sometimes pick up weight on the roads that they own. So that's the one that I wanted to add, maybe getting a list there, because there is a really significant pothole on Mount Oak. When you're coming off of 301, it's really, really bad and it can damage vehicles. And when people are speeding off of 301 and getting on Mount Oak, it's just a nightmare waiting to happen. And there is a pet clinic right there. So it's just not safe. So we can just maybe write a letter to the county, or once we're done and we aggregate the list, maybe put all of that in a letter to the county and the state so that we can re-emphasize that to them. And then I'd be remiss, since I liaise on the IT committee, I have to shout out the most wonderful committee here because they're doing some really great work. I think as part of our directive to staff, maybe part of this could be to look at, and I know you might have already done this, but look at smart region transportation applications. So there has been an uptick of certain cities using kind of IoT as well as other traffic measure data that they can purchase subscriptions to be able to analyze that traffic pattern or that traffic data to know where they're speeding, because community members are reporting it. And so I think it might be helpful if we had the bandwidth to maybe look at something like that. So at least 2 times a year, or we're doing this quarterly, should staff have the bandwidth to really look and see what is the data telling us. Are we seeing more improvements on X road, so we can maybe not have the device there and rotate it to another area? Are we seeing more speeding on Y road? So really just having that proactivity there, that would be really, really helpful for us to just have incoming data so that staff isn't having to always spend the $5,000 on the traffic study when that comes about, because I know that's pretty labor intensive. And then just to kind of just give a little bit more clarity on that, I know the IT committee did send a message to staff, or some members of staff, I'm not sure who, but just briefly, it does read, our residents provide continuous traffic data to all online map services. Our government should be able to make use of it. By trafficking traffic patterns over time, governments get a better understanding of how transportation systems are evolving. This information can be used to plan for future growth and ensure that the system can accommodate proposed changes in traffic patterns. So I think that's just a really, really helpful point. And it does note that 79% of adults are smartphone users. So even if they have these applications open, those apps are still collecting that data on their phone. Not getting into CCPA here, but just so we know that data is continuously being collected so we can make use of it. So that's the other suggestion that I would offer as a part of any motion that's made tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Councilman Esteve?
So I was going to jump right into maybe some instructions and motion making based on what Mayor Pro Tem Ndubamadu raised. And thank you for that, because she's right. The IT committee did reach out to us, as the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, with suggestions for using traffic data. Would staff be willing, Mr. Aldiez, as you work with the police department and are coming back to us with this, would you be willing to include the Public Safety Committee as well as the IT Committee in your work, looping them in and communicating with them, because they did raise a number of policy suggestions?
Excuse me, Councilman, we make that determination.
Oh, fair enough.
We make that determination. And if you'd like to do that, I will let them know that I believe we can all agree that may be beneficial to do, and we can do that.
Fair enough. I was being polite about it, but I hear what you're saying.
So was
Mr.
I.
Mayor. Fair enough. Fair enough. But I do think it would make sense to include the PSC and the IT committee in those discussions. They did have some suggestions that may be actionable, may not, but in any case, I did want them to be involved in the conversation. The other thing is, currently, any individual council member can request a traffic study. My question is, can an individual council member request specifically a four-way stop at a particular location and a no parking sign at a particular location currently?
Well, let me answer that one, Jose. Currently, that is the practice. If somebody has reports a parking violation that is at a particular location where it isn't marked, for example, within close proximity to an intersection where parking is restricted, and it's apparent that if we put a no parking sign there, we could mitigate that situation, then we'll do it. Yes. And the answer to that question is yes. Now, with regard to the four-way stop, I want to make one correction. A traffic study does not cost $5,000. However, a four-way stop study does, and that is something we have not budgeted for. Now, in the instance that we're doing one right now, based on your request and the circumstances that existed, and the fact that this is a traffic calming event, we think we can accommodate that within the budget. However, any more like that, then we've got to find other money, or there'll have to be a budget amendment, or things will have to wait until the next budget cycle where we can add $50,000 so we can do 10 of those a year if necessary. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, Mr. Lott. So
Thank you.
the four-way stop study, the study costs $5,000. What does it cost to just install a four-way stop sign without conducting a study? Just curious.
There's no particular extra cost for that, because that's just a matter of putting up the stop signs. And we already have stop signs and that sort of thing programmed into the budget.
Understood. So here's my question, and I'm going to anticipate something here. I know in past conversations with Mr. Stefanos at Public Works and staff, the issue that comes up is that an excessive use of stop signs as traffic calming reduces people's willingness to take stop signs seriously. And that's a real concern. And I know that staff has also raised that, for instance, when you put in speed humps, it's often the case that residents will actually end up speeding more between the humps. And when you put in too many stop signs, residents will end up speeding more between the stop signs. And so I just want to, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so I just wanted to give voice to those things because staff has been consistent with those valid concerns over the years. I do want to point out, however, so Councilmember Hawkins raised Old Bowie a moment ago. So on Bowie Station Court, there is a four-way stop currently on Myrtle Avenue. And residents on Myrtle Avenue on the south end tell me that people come speeding from those stop signs down towards Triple Crown. However, I also hear from residents on Bowie Station Court that even though people don't come to a complete stop at Bowie Station Court, they pretty much universally slow down, which is a good use of a stop sign when it comes to improving safety. Even if they're doing a California rolling stop, the fact that they're slowing down and having to pay attention does improve safety for Bowie Station Court. And you know something I saw on Bowie Station Court that I didn't see anywhere else on Myrtle Avenue? I saw kids playing on Bowie Station Court in their front yards, on the street, without a care in the world, and the parents were comfortable because they know that people are slowing down at that four-way stop. So my request would be this. I know that staff has been great about putting up no parking signs, a council request. I would like to reiterate my request tonight for one at Maple and 7th in Old Bowie on the southeastern quadrant of Maple and 7th because there's a line of sight issue as people are coming down 7th to make a left turn onto Maple. So I'd like to formally reiterate my request for a no parking sign there. But I would oh, go ahead.
I would need, if you could send us a photo or something specifically where you want that sign placed.
Yep.
So we don't waste any assets here, and and that would be helpful because we can do that. But I want to say this. I mean, it's a policy issue from your perspective as to whether we put up four-way stop, chicanes, whatever. That's all policy. And,
Exactly.
and you have the absolute authority, the council, to change, lower, or raise the standards on the policy, on the traffic calming. So we'll tell you what the industry recommends, and that's what Jose's a licensed engineer to tell you. But then you all have a right to do what you want. And we'll tell you what else it'll cost us, you know, because I know 20 years ago, one speed bump cost $1,500, so you can figure out what it is now. But we'll be able to, the next time we talk, we'll be able to talk about budget issues all associated with more chicanes, or traffic calming devices, or roundabouts or whatever.
Thank you, City Manager. I think what we have all heard this evening is throughout the entire council that we've known about this issue, we've tried to address it, and I think it's great that we're taking a great look at everything going on. You know, that's how we end up with the additional speed cameras, to try and enforce and do that. As we were talking with an interviewer a little earlier today, talking about the issues of not having curb cuts, but also what it is for our seniors and others to get across the street when people are coming at such a fast pace and other things. So we want this about being a livable community and continue to keep it that way. I think if we did a quick summation of what we talked about, and I think all of our colleagues have kind of touched on it, and that is, number one, it was November of 2008 when the city council looked at the county council's transportation policy and modified it slightly, but went with that. So it's been a while. The city has grown, it's changed, and other things. And so I think we all agree we need to go back and look at what we as a city want to do when it comes to our transportation policy. And we've heard a lot of suggestions on what that looks like and what that can be. We've also asked that we get some real specifics. You know, when we talk about types of calming to city staff, when we talk about the cost for the different things that we're doing. As we as a council now start discussing how we will put together and look at revising our transportation policy and moving that forward as well. I think as we talk about providing the input, where will those speed cameras be? Where is it, those areas that we need to look at? Where are all these suggestions going? And we put that all together. So I want to thank all my colleagues for having the best interests of the city at heart and making sure that we move forward with that. I think it's an interesting thing, as we heard one comment earlier, because of costs and what we do and how we go forward, we have to keep in mind where we are with our budget and having to do those amendments if we need to for emergency. And when I say emergency, places that we know, we want to make sure that there's no major accident before we act. And so we turn a lot of this over to you, to the city staff. I know for the next meeting, there's several things we'd like to see. City manager, I know we're asking for a chance to get a look at what some of the devices are that were talked about, what some of those costs for those things are. We're talking about doing that, and we as a council have to talk, and we'll start moving forward on how do we put together, I think it was Councilman Dufour talked about a committee to help us to put all that together. We talked about making sure, and I say now, that to staff, that both of those committees work together in doing things, moving forward with our traffic. So that's a huge piece, you know, the expression, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Well, we got to start biting pretty quick. And I think that's the sense of urgency that the council has as a whole. So with having, all right, Councilman, just one quick thing, and then we got to move on.
So sorry, I just want to make sure the Mayor Pro Tem suggestion wasn't forgotten. Councilmember Debumadu's staff raised having council submit the locations of county and state streets for specific remediation concerns. Perhaps we can ask staff to allow council to submit those in writing to you guys and come back to us with a letter at our next meeting with a list of those particular locations. Mayor Pro Tem DiBamado referenced several. I know my colleagues had several as well. I have several that are county and state related. If we could have staff just give us that opportunity to send you guys some stuff in writing and have a letter ready to go at our next meeting for us to vote to send to county and state lawmakers.
City Manager, go ahead.
Well, sure, you can, if you could get us the list of streets within the next week, then we can certainly draft a letter to the state and the county if that's what the council wants. I mean, we certainly already have lines of communication open with both the state and the county, and which has, in the last 7 years with the business operations, which are very effective. But we can certainly put that in the form of a letter and send it off if that's what the council wants.
I think
But
the letter
if you-
would be in addition to the regular communication your business manager is having as well, because I do think we want to put the county and state formally on notice about a couple locations where we've had some longstanding issues.
If the council wants that, we'll sit there and do it.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let's keep it going. You turned to, City Manager, go ahead.
Well, if the council
And we're
wants us
talking
to send a
more.
letter, we can certainly do it once we get the list and determine which roads are county and which ones are state, and we'll draft the letter. And what I'll also do is assign the assistant city manager, who is not present tonight, and to work with our engineer and the police department to have a collective effort to look at both these sorts of things, like individual county and state roads within individual districts and address those. Also, to take a look at the policy. I'm assuming that the council wants to lower the standards so we can, in fact, implement more traffic calming devices, whatever they are. And so I'm gonna ask them to work on that to lower the standards so that level 2 is more attainable. Also, and make some other recommendations associated with it, and also bring back some costs of what a speed table costs, what a speed hump costs, what a chicane costs, what a roundabout costs, so we can, in fact, so we'll know what it is, and then we can address it in the budget if the council agrees to do this.
And the
Understood.
feasibility of the traffic data. So leveraging the
Please.
traffic data as well. That's the only other one.
Please, again. I recognize you, Mayor Pro Tem, are you finished? Please wait till you get recognized, okay? So we don't talk
Thanks.
over each other.
Thanks for sharing.
What I would
Go
like to
ahead,
do is-
City Manager.
Well, I mean, the idea of, we're currently using data to measure the streets. That's what our traffic studies do. And I'm sure Jose can attest to that. But what I'm gonna ask Todd and Jose to do is to look within the community of traffic management to see how we could leverage data better and what it would cost us to do so at this present time. Because I mean, right now we're doing traffic studies and we're hiring contractors to do it for us. We're taking the data and moving forward. But if we want to raise that level and increase the automation associated with it, there's going to be a cost, I'm sure.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
Go ahead.
My specific ask is to possibly have a discussion with the IT committee on their suggestions and the white paper that they wrote to assess the feasibility of how we can incorporate that, or if it even makes sense.
We'll talk to them. We will coordinate.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone, and again, we'll go back. We have a lot we need to work on. We know we need to get started. City Manager, I know you taking a lot of notes there. We can go back, review it. City staff, thank you so very much. Again, we know how important this is to our community as a whole. And this is a good start. And again, I commend the city staff for things and the council, because I'm still very excited about those 15 new cameras, because that's 15 spots that we know that we can try and do some traffic calming and really make a dent immediately as we do that. And I really look forward to the presentation by the police department on where they're going and those kind of things, as well as some of the other data gathered. So having heard that, at this time, let's move on to I will turn it over to, again, to the staff for the detailed site plan for DSP 22033.
Thank you.
Mr. Minor?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Joe Minert, the planning director, and before you tonight is a detailed site plan, DSP 22033. This is involving Collington Plaza, and what is proposed is a daycare center in one of the storefronts in the center. The property is located, or the location is at the back of the center nearest the Walmart department store. The name of the proposed daycare is Nora's Angels Daycare, and we do have the applicant here that they can present to you in a few minutes when I'm finished what their concept is for the property. I wanted to say that the property is currently, it's being requested that it be developed under the old ordinance, under the CSC zone provisions, which states that approval of a detailed site plan is required. And the zoning ordinance actually has specific criteria related to detailed site plans for daycare centers. One of the other things to note is that the city approval is necessary because of an annexation agreement with this property back in 1994, where the property owner did give the city the right to review and approve any changes to the site plan. And that is why the applicant needs the city council's approval tonight. The county planning board hearing for this is tentatively scheduled for November 2nd. The daycare center is proposed to have a maximum occupancy of 50 children. The details are in the staff report. We also attach the site plans that show the play area, which will be covered with a canopy area and fenced. A statement of justification provided is attachment 3, describes the proposal's conformance with the required criteria. This project was reviewed by the county agencies at their meeting of September 1st. We attached those comments for council's information, and we agree with those comments, which were minimal in nature. Since that time, the applicant did submit a revised site plan that does address the comments from the agencies. So with regard to the detailed site plan tonight, staff has concluded that the criteria for approval from section 27285B1 of the zoning ordinance, as well as the specific criteria that I mentioned, which are in 27464.02 pertaining to daycare centers, are being met with this proposed plan, and therefore staff recommends approval. We have with us tonight the applicant, Mr. Nnamdi Nwosu and Nora Nwosu, and they can approach council and present their concept if there are no questions.
Please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening.
Adjust the microphone.
Oh, sure, sorry. I guess I should step over here. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Good evening, council members. Good evening, city staff. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nnamdi Nwosu. This lovely lady here is my wife, Nora Nwosu. We both own and operate the Noah's Angels Early Learning Center. It's a childcare facility that was established back in 2015. And thank you for the opportunity that you provided us here at this hearing to discuss our goals and why we believe that the new site and location at Collington Plaza is ideal for the members and the residents of that zone, that live in that zone area. The goal is to increase and expand employment, not only employment opportunities for the residents in that zone, but also to expand our child developmental developmental educational opportunities, okay, for the children, okay? So essentially, our children the age is gonna be from 6 months to 6 years, and it's more about the convenience that we're gonna offer to the residents in that zone, and also to the employees that live in the mall, and also the visitors that come to that mall, Collington Plaza Mall. Now, the next closest childcare facility is, I think, 22 miles, which is kind of care. And we've actually have a waiting list already, right? A high demand for, for parents. So they want our services because it's going to be closer to them in that area. So you will have parents and employees who work at the mall. They come in, they can drop off their kids in before care. They go to work. Also we'll have buses that we're going to pick up kids at their school and then drop them off as well before and after care. So it's going to be providing those type of services, which is very convenient to the employees that work at the mall and also the residents in that area as well. Another thing we'll be doing is providing career advancement opportunities for the early childhood educators. We're going to be working there as well. Also benefits as well, and also the specific. And my wife can speak more to the program, the STEM programs that that we're going to be providing, to the children. Okay, that we are going to intake there. And that's. There'll be like over 1,000 parking spaces, so there will be no limitation of parking, for the residents or the parents or the employees, to park there at the mall. Am I missing something? Maybe?
Since you brought that up, if you don't mind my asking, I know the fire service recommended putting the curbstones or whatever to prevent cars from going over. That is something that you would be looking at as well, and making sure that that was included, correct?
Yes, we're going to meet all the requirements, based on the comments that we received from planning and the city, and we're in the process of doing that now. We will adhere to those requirements, yes.
Okay. All right. I'll turn to council. Any questions at this time? Question? No. I think we're good. And Joe, the recommendation at this point was that it be accepted, correct? The detailed
Yes, we're
site plan?
recommending approval, and there is an attached letter to your packet there.
Yes. So do we need to take action on this, city clerk? So
Yes, Mayor.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the detailed site plan.
I'd like to file a motion to accept the detailed site plan 22033.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you so very much.
No, thank you, I appreciate it.
And one of the things we all know is the challenge for daycare.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
All right. I will now entertain another motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, meeting is adjourned. I'd like to please thank everyone who's watched and participated in our council meeting. I'd like to thank staff for all they've done in preparing and getting everything done. And I'd like to thank my colleagues for your diligent work. And on that note, thank you, everyone, and have a good night.